Starting the timer. Good morning. Hey, everybody. Yeah, it's misleading that my father is a minister. I mean, he is an Episcopal minister, but Episcopalians don't preach, you know. They share a word. Anyway, so, stay close. Okay, thank you. So we worship at a very interesting time in our history. We worship a God who calls women sons of God and calls men the bride of Christ. I asked a couple of the guys in the men's group, what do you do with bride of Christ? I mean, does that really help you in your life? And pretty much got the same answer from everyone, which is like, I don't know. So clearly it's a mystery. As Paul says in Ephesians 5:31 through 32, for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church, the bride and the bridegroom. So the Bible, it turns out, is a love story. A love story told by 40 different authors, and somehow it all works. Starting in the Old Testament, God's covenant with Israel was a marriage covenant. In the Law and the Prophets, the love story was God and Israel. Israel was often described as a woman. In the Song of Solomon, you know, you see the passion, the ardor, and the racy language of. I mean, this guy really loves her. And then in Hosea, we see that this woman, Israel, is also faithless. Hosea, as a prophet, was asked to marry a prostitute, and that was a prophetic act because that's the way Israel was acting toward God, always looking for another God, a better God, looking around. And so what we see is God is a relentless pursuer. He just keeps on going. In the New Testament, the love story is between Jesus and his people, the church, the ecclesia. John the Baptist calls Jesus the bridegroom. Jesus calls himself the bridegroom. At the Last Supper, when he says, at the Last Supper, he's quoting verbatim words that a groom would say to his bride at a Jewish betrothal in Galilee. I will never drink. He offers her the cup of joy. And at that point, the ketubah contract is signed. Camels and sheep are all going to be, go to the bride's family, and it's a done deal. But at that point, despite all of that, the bride can refuse the cup. He's offered the cup. She can refuse the cup. But so he says, and after the betrothal, there's a year period of preparation where the groom goes to his father's house and adds an addition to the house, builds, which will be where the bride and groom will live. So Jesus says, after he, just like the groom offers the cup at the Last Supper to his disciples, he's marrying the church. He's saying, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine again until I do it in my Father's house with you, which is what the groom says to the bride in the betrothal. So God's people are God's bride, but we're kind of a runaway bride. And there's a bride price that has to be paid. In Hebrews 2:2, it says something really interesting. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross. So even as a boy, he had seen he'd seen people crucified. He'd seen the agony. He'd stood up and looked and at the horror and he knew in Gethsemane he was sweating blood because he knew what the cup meant for him. And yet, for the joy set before him, the torture, the beatings, the stripping of his flesh with whips, 39 lashes, for the joy set before him. But wait, what's this joy? What is the joy? And the joy is his bride. He sees his bride who was dirty, who had defiled herself. And he sees her cleansed by his blood and spotless and pure, a virgin. He sees the lost saved and found. He sees the people wandering, doing ridiculous things. He sees them in his bridal chamber, his love, his bride. It was his vision of us that was the joy that gave him the strength to endure the cross. The passion of the Christ was the passion for his bride. Now, I'm going to take a little side note here because English is a non-gendered language. If you studied Spanish or French or any of the Romance languages, or Hebrew or Russian, they're gendered languages. There's things are masculine or feminine. Everything is masculine and feminine, and this is foreign to us because our language is, to us it's a thing. But in Hebrew, certainly. All right. I'll cue you, Betsy. Thank you so much.
It's 12:2.
What's that?
Hebrews 12:2, not 2:2.
Oh, thank you so much. 12:2. Well done. Okay, Betsy's on it. All right, so understanding the masculine and feminine in terms of concepts. Masculine and feminine must coexist. And it has nothing to do with whether you're a man or a woman. Every man, every woman has masculine and feminine qualities and traits. And how we relate to people can change. And it changes. Sometimes we relate, when we submit, we're submitting it. So Jesus used feminine metaphors to describe himself, like a hen. I wanted to gather my chicks before me, and they complement each other. So examples of masculine and feminine: thinking and feeling. Thinking is masculine, feeling is feminine. Justice and mercy. What happens to justice when there's no mercy? What happens to mercy when there's no justice? They must coexist. When people talk about absurd things about toxic, masculinity is toxic when it's not balanced by feminine virtues. Femininity is toxic when it's not balanced by masculine virtues. The term servant leader, servant feminine, leader masculine, they coexist. So God relates to us masculine to feminine, bridegroom to bride. He's the initiator. He's the first mover. He's the lover. We are the beloved. He acts. We respond. He speaks. We hear. Faith comes by hearing. Faith is a feminine virtue. He is the author and perfecter of our faith. He's the Alpha and Omega. We love him because he first loved us. And the reason that's important is a lot of times I forget this, and I fill in the blanks for God, and I kind of start doing his job, and I take the masculine role, and I try to, and that's called religion. So we play a secondary feminine role in our relationship with God. And Jesus modeled that when he was walked on the earth. Because he said, John 5:19, Jesus gave them this answer. Very truly, I tell you, the Son can do nothing by himself. He can only do what he sees his Father doing, because whatever the Father does, the Son also does. I can do nothing on my own. I mean, humility is a feminine virtue. He modeled dependence, submission, obedience, and trust, feminine virtues. The fruits of the Spirit are more feminine: love, joy, peace than masculine. A contrite heart, weeping and mourning sin, is a feminine response to God's goodness, his kindness that leads us to repentance. Now, what happens when we decide we better take over? It happened to a guy named Abraham. God promised a son, and Abraham responded appropriately. He had faith for years and years and years and years and years. And then Sarah had a great idea. And he said, that sounds like a great idea. Waiting is hard. Faith is hard. Trust is hard. God wasn't quite doing his job. He wasn't on the right timetable, not fast enough. So Abraham helped him out. And 4,000 years later, there's a war in Israel. The sons of Ishmael are trying to wipe out the sons of Isaac, because Abraham, a good man of God, tried to help God. He played the active, not the passive role. We like to use our mind because it helps us feel in control. But we're learning from Tom Loud that the mind is of no value in spiritual things. It just gets in the way. The mind is enmity with God. We feel like we're in control, but we're actually moving away from God. Another thing that's hard is intimacy. When you talk about a bride, you talk about a wedding. When you talk about a wedding, you talk about romance, and you end up in a bridal chamber. And it gets really interesting. And at some point, how close do we let God get to us? How intimate do we? And where does fear make us frozen, or just keep him at a distance? No eye. 1 Corinthians 2:9. No, it is written, what no eye has seen, no ear has heard, the heart of man has never imagined, cannot imagine what God has prepared for those who love him. You can't imagine how much God loves you. You can't imagine it. It's not possible. You can't over-imagine it either. Try to over-imagine it, and you will undercut it. You go as far as your brain will let you go. It's not enough. So the mystery of Christ in the church takes place in a bridal suite. It's intimate. Jesus had 3 years to tell his story. 3 years of ministry to change the world, to save the world. And he spent those 3 years mostly telling stories. So I'm going to tell a story. It took place at a wedding in Galilee. You don't know this story. The wedding was in full gear, days of exotic food and guests and gifts. All the guests are inside the father's compound. The door is locked. Everyone's dressed in white. It's just wonderful. Everyone's been waiting forever for this. The kids, Naomi and Jacob, had been, their marriage was arranged when they were 3 and 5. And everyone loves these kids. They're amazing. They're just good. They're beautiful. They're full of light and life. And they're very excited too. And so the strange thing is that, and the bridesmaids have been telling her, "You are the luckiest woman in the world. Jacob is he's so good. He's like strong. He's 15 years old, but still, he's really strong for 15. And really good looking, family's got some money, so it's, this should be the happiest day of her life. But Naomi is paralyzed with fear. She's trying to smile through the veil she's been wearing for the last year while her husband, but not yet consummated, has built this house next to his father's house, connected to his father's house. She's terrified. And now the time is coming because she knows what's going to happen now. Well, she has a secret. At some point in the last year and a half, at some family gathering or something, a cousin snuck into her room and violated her. And now she's been living with this as she approaches her wedding day. And she hasn't told her mother. She's so ashamed. She just feels so dirty. She hasn't, of course, told her father, who would disown her, put her out on the street. But she has a plan, because she knows that all the guests will be seated around the bridal chamber, cheering them on for the big day, the big moment that is coming right now. And it's going to end with the big celebration when he comes out and lifts up the bed sheets that prove his bride has been faithful. Her plan, she has a little curved blade in her that she has sewn into her garments. And while the guests and the parents and the families are laughing and making jokes and cheering them on from outside, she slips it out and tries to be subtle. But he catches her. And what is this? I'm like, what is this? And she breaks down and she's inconsolable and says, I'm sorry. I've ruined your life. I'm sorry. And she says what happened. And she knows he's going to divorce her now. And it will bring great shame to her family. But he keeps saying, you're so beautiful. You're so beautiful. You're so beautiful. And she's like, no, I'm not. You're so beautiful. And she realizes now she wants to cut herself just to save his reputation. And she tries to reach for it, and he doesn't let her. Meanwhile, outside, everyone's getting really bored. They were expecting fireworks by now. All they're hearing is these sobbing and whispers and urgent. And then finally, Jacob emerges and holds up a bloody bedsheet. And the crowd goes wild. They're just, wow, yes, yes, yes. This is what we've been waiting for. This is fantastic. Hooray. And inside, Naomi is smiling. No, she's not smiling. She's glowing. She's beaming. She cannot believe. She's not bouncing. She cannot believe it. She's just staring at the ceiling in disbelief because she knows that that's not her blood on the sheet. And the bridegroom has cleansed the bride. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross for me and for you.